Did you know that in the shadowy vaults of medieval politics, England once crowned a child queen, barely 6 years old, a tiny girl draped in pearls so heavy they nearly toppled her delicate head because her marriage was the only thing powerful enough to halt the blood-soaked Hundred Years' War? This isn't fiction. It's one of history's darkest royal scandals, hidden behind Gothic arches and whispered through corridors of power, a forgotten chapter even many royal historians overlook. I'm standing as a priest in Westminster Abbey in 1396, my breath frosting the autumn air, clutching my prayer book, as I watch servants scurry to prepare a royal wedding, so shocking that courtiers can barely speak its secrets aloud. This is Isabella of Valois, daughter of King Charles VI of France, a child sacrificed at the altar of medieval diplomacy. Stay with me as we dive into forbidden royal secrets, child queens, and political games that shaped hidden history and echo into our own age of viral truths. She was born into a world gilded with silk and gold, yet stained with fear, a princess whose first cries echoed through the vaulted halls of the Louvre Palace in Paris on November 9th, 1389. Her name was Isabella of Valois, destined to become one of Europe's most tragic and hidden queens, her life shaped not merely by her own heart, but by the crushing weight of medieval politics and royal scandal. Imagine being a child barely old enough to speak while outside your nursery walls, kings and courtiers whispered of alliances, wars, and secrets that could topple entire dynasties. Isabella was the eldest daughter of King Charles VI of France, a monarch whose reign would become infamous not only for bloodshed and political intrigue, but for the dark, terrifying spiral of his own mind, a king remembered by history as Charles the Mad. Behind the glittering facade of the French royal court lay a reality darker than any Gothic cathedral shadows. There were days when Charles was a capable ruler, riding at the head of armies and signing treaties that could change the fate of Europe. But there were also nights when he raved like a man possessed, convinced his body was made of fragile glass, terrified that a single touch might shatter him into countless pieces. And there were mornings when he stared into the eyes of his own wife and children and did not recognize them, trapped in a royal prison of insanity. What would it be like to be a little girl growing up amid such chaos, to watch your father one day bounce you on his knee with gifts and laughter, and the next see him cowering in a corner screaming of invisible assassins? For Isabella, this was not a royal fairy tale. It was the raw, dangerous truth. Yet even as a child, Isabella was more than merely the daughter of a troubled king. She was a piece in a much grander game, a living pawn whose beauty and royal bloodline would one day decide the fate of nations. And as we shall see, that fate would come calling sooner than anyone could have imagined. For Isabella's mother, Queen Isabeau of Bavaria, survival in this royal labyrinth demanded both beauty and ruthless intelligence. She was a woman of striking presence, her reputation swirling with whispers of political schemes and secret ambitions. A queen who understood better than most that her children were not simply sons and daughters, but powerful pieces on a chessboard stained with royal blood. In the shimmering halls of Paris, Isabeau maneuvered like a seasoned diplomat, even as her husband's mind unraveled before the entire court. She knew that her daughter's future would never be shaped by mere affection or the innocence of childhood, but by the cold calculations of medieval politics and royal scandal.
It was Isabeau who watched Isabella with a discerning, almost calculating gaze, recognizing that the child's delicate features and royal lineage could forge alliances strong enough to silence swords and bring kingdoms to their knees. In those turbulent days, nothing mattered more than forging bonds that might shield France from the relentless storm of the 100 Years' War, a war whose toll echoed through every stone corridor and blood-soaked battlefield. But what no one could have foreseen was how soon Isabella would be summoned to the center of this storm, chosen not merely as a princess to be cherished, but as a diplomatic offering that might decide the fate of nations.
And it is here in the shadow of a world torn by endless conflict that Isabella's true story would begin to unfold. Across Europe, the clash of kingdoms thundered like a relentless storm, leaving both France and England battered and blood-stained, by the grinding fury of the 100 Years' War, a conflict so vast it consumed entire generations, transforming kings into exiles and villages into silent fields of ash. This was no mere quarrel over crowns. It was a war that tore at the very soul of nations, fueled by ancient claims to thrones and the insatiable hunger for power, wealth, and dominion. And in the echoing corridors of royal palaces, the whispers of secret treaties and hidden betrayals grew louder with each passing year. By the time Isabella was learning to walk, England and France had already been locked in brutal struggle for more than half a century. French peasants wept over burned fields and ruined homes after English raids, while English nobles strained their coffers to fund endless campaigns across the Channel. Both kingdoms stood exhausted, their treasuries bleeding gold, their people desperate for any glimpse of peace. But in the cruel logic of medieval politics, peace was never won merely with words. It demanded hostages, marriages, and sacrifices paid in royal blood. And so, in secret rooms lit by flickering candles, powerful men began to speak of a shocking solution. A child queen barely 6 years old offered as the living symbol of a truce. It was Isabella who would soon be thrust into this dangerous game, her fate intertwined with treaties and ambitions far beyond a little girl's dreams. In the shadows of war and whispered conspiracies, the idea was born, a scheme so audacious it seemed almost unthinkable even in a world accustomed to royal scandal and dark secrets. To stop the endless bloodshed between England and France, powerful men on both sides began crafting a plan: marry the English King Richard II to the 6-year-old Isabella of Valois. Imagine the stakes: a child queen offered as a living shield against swords and siege engines, her tiny hands destined to hold together the fragile peace of two weary kingdoms. Richard II himself, shattered by the grief of losing his beloved first wife Anne of Bohemia, had resisted the thought of remarrying. For him, Anne had been more than a political alliance. She was his partner, his confidant, a bond of genuine affection, rare in medieval politics. But grief could not outweigh the cold arithmetic of kingship. Without an heir, Richard's throne trembled beneath the weight of ambition and rebellion. And when French ambassadors arrived carrying not only promises of peace but the astonishing offer of an 800,000 franc dowry and a 28-year truce, even a reluctant king was forced to listen. Yet one truth lingered like a shadow: Isabella was only 6 years old. Even by medieval standards, this was a marriage shocking enough to send ripples through every court in Europe. And as secret negotiations unfolded across the Channel, preparations for a royal wedding unlike any England had ever seen began to take shape. While kings and ambassadors traded secrets over maps stained with wine and candle wax, a very different world unfolded in the sunlit chambers of the Louvre Palace. Little Isabella, just 6 years old, was learning English words she could barely pronounce, coached by tutors who spoke of kings and crowns while she played with her carved wooden dolls. Seamstresses measured her tiny shoulders for a wedding gown woven of cloth of gold so heavy it would take several ladies-in-waiting simply to help her walk. How could a child grasp that the glittering threads binding her dress would soon bind her destiny to the fate of two warring kingdoms? In those precious moments of childhood, Isabella may have dreamed of castles and fairy tales, not knowing that she was being transformed into the ultimate pawn in a game of medieval politics and royal scandal. While soldiers sharpened swords for a war that might finally cease, Isabella's trousseau grew richer by the day, boxes filled with jewels, silks, and golden embroidery destined not just to adorn a bride but to dazzle an entire realm into believing in peace. But behind each embroidered rose and pearl lay a darker truth. This wedding was a gamble of unimaginable stakes, a dangerous bargain sealed not with love, but with treaties and fragile truces. And as ships prepared to carry Isabella across the Channel, the eyes of all Europe turned toward the young princess, whose innocent smile hid the weight of a kingdom's hopes. Across the Channel, King Richard II of England stood haunted by shadows of his own past, a monarch still mourning his first queen Anne of Bohemia, whose death from plague had left him bereft, both as a man and as a ruler. Their marriage had been rare for royal unions, a true love match, not merely a tool of medieval politics. Anne had been gentle, beloved by the English people, a queen whose kindness softened even the hardest noble hearts. And in losing her, Richard lost more than a wife. He lost the anchor that steadied his crown against the dark tides of rebellion and royal scandal. For a time, he swore he would never remarry. How could any bride replace the woman he'd once called his good Queen Anne yet? In the ruthless calculus of medieval power, personal grief held little weight against the demands of politics and hidden history. Richard's advisors pressed him to see the future. Without an heir, the Plantagenet dynasty trembled on the brink, a kingdom ripe for civil war. And then came the French offer-piece, a colossal dowry of 800,000 francs, and a bride whose tiny face in a painted miniature seemed to stir some lost spark of hope within the grieving king. But could a child bride truly heal a kingdom's wounds, or would this union ignite new fires destined to consume them all? Even as Richard pondered his impossible choice, negotiations surged forward, weaving a web of promises and secrets that would soon bind two thrones. As negotiations unfolded like a dangerous dance across the stormy channel, every clause, every whispered word carried stakes that could topple kingdoms. The French ambassadors arrived in England, robes shimmering with diplomatic splendor, speaking of peace so long denied to both realms, a truce that might spare countless lives, refill drained treasuries, and stitch shut wounds left gaping by half a century of bloodshed. Yet lurking beneath these polished courtesies was a darker truth. This proposed marriage was nothing less than a high-stakes gamble in the ruthless arena of medieval politics and royal scandal. Isabella was only 6 years old, a child so young that the ink on her ABC lessons had barely dried. Even in an age where girls were bartered as pawns, her tender age raised wary eyebrows in both courts. Thus, the treaty included solemn promises written in meticulous Latin. The marriage would remain unconsummated until Isabella reached physical maturity. She would be allowed to keep her French attendants, preserve her native customs, and correspond freely with her family, a delicate compromise meant to reassure both France and England that she would not vanish entirely into a foreign court's shadows. Meanwhile, in Paris, the little princess played with her dolls as seamstresses prepared her trousseau, unaware that her future was being forged in secret councils and sealed with wax and royal seals. Yet destiny moved swiftly, and soon Isabella would sail toward a wedding veil heavy with pearls and a crown far heavier still. On the wind-swept shores of Calais, under skies heavy with the salt tang of the Channel history, poised itself for a spectacle so strange it would ripple through the centuries, a royal wedding unlike any Europe had ever witnessed, steeped in royal scandal and hidden history. Here, in the English-held port on French soil, two kingdoms gathered for a union meant to silence cannons and cool the fires of war. But how could peace be born from a bride so small she could barely carry the weight of her golden gown? The great hall of Calais Castle shimmered with candlelight banners of crimson and azure, fluttering above an audience of wary diplomats and armored nobles. At the center stood Isabella of Valois, a child queen draped in cloth of gold so richly embroidered and studded with pearls that she needed attendants on either side to steady her steps. Her dark hair, coiled in elaborate braids, sparkled under jeweled nets, framing a solemn little face that seemed almost lost amid the splendor. Witnesses spoke in hushed awe of how Richard II knelt to her level, his golden hair catching the flicker of torchlight, lifting her tiny chin so gently as he exchanged vows destined to reshape the fate of empires. But this was only the beginning. For even as Calais rang with ceremonial trumpets, plans were already underway for a second, grander coronation, a spectacle waiting across the Channel in the sacred stones of Westminster Abbey. Barely a year after vows were whispered in Calais, the streets of London erupted into a frenzy of color and noise as Isabella of Valois arrived for her second, grander coronation, a spectacle designed to dazzle the realm into believing that peace was finally secured. Under banners emblazoned with English lions and French fleurs-de-lis, thousands pressed shoulder to shoulder, desperate for a glimpse of the child queen whose very existence had become a symbol of royal scandal and hidden history. How could a 6-year-old girl barely taller than a scepter hold the balance of two warring kingdoms in her delicate hands? Westminster Abbey stood cloaked in the glow of flickering candles, Gothic arches soaring overhead like stone wings sheltering secrets older than memory. Into this sacred space, processed Isabella carried in a litter adorned with roses and golden embroidery a tiny figure beneath a crown specially forged for her small brow. The weight of that crown seemed almost cruel, its gems winking like watchful eyes as she moved with the solemnity drilled into her by tireless French tutors. Eyewitnesses spoke breathlessly of how English duchesses held the train of Isabella's gown, how the crowd surged forward in such numbers that several people were crushed to death in the chaos, a testament to how even in an age drenched in blood, a royal wedding still possessed the power to hypnotize a kingdom. But beyond the cheers and the shimmering pageantry awaited the true test, a foreign court, a language she barely spoke, and a husband who was king of a realm simmering with hidden dangers. Behind the towering walls of Westminster Palace, young Isabella's life transformed from glittering spectacle to quiet routine, though even routine for a child queen was laced with royal scandal and hidden history. Her new world was a maze of echoing corridors, embroidered tapestries, and secretive courtiers whose eyes seemed always to measure her worth. Can you imagine being 7 years old navigating a kingdom where every glance might conceal ambition, jealousy, or dark political secrets? Richard II himself took a keen interest in Isabella's welfare. Chroniclers described the king arriving with gifts, exotic birds from Ireland, intricately bound books from Oxford, and musical instruments crafted by London's finest artisans. He treated her with a gentle respect, as though determined to protect the child queen from the treacheries swirling around his throne. And Isabella, still mastering her English tongue, began to greet him with a mixture of shy affection and regal composure, a living emblem of medieval politics forged in innocence and necessity. At court, Isabella found an unexpected anchor in Margaret Holland, a noble girl, just slightly older, who became both friend and guide. Margaret taught Isabella English games, whispered the names of noble families who could be trusted or feared, and even explained why conversations abruptly fell silent whenever certain lords entered the room. Yet beneath the careful lessons and new friendships lurked an uneasy tension, for England was far from a kingdom at peace. Whispers of discontent grew louder in shadowy corners of the court, and soon those whispers would erupt into events that would shatter Isabella's fragile world forever. As the sun set over London's spires, a darker storm gathered over England, a storm of betrayal, ambition, and royal scandal, poised to engulf both king and child queen alike. In the hush of Westminster's great halls, Isabella began to sense an invisible fracture running through the kingdom, as though the very stones beneath her slippers were shifting. Why did conversations halt so sharply when she entered a room? Why did even her trusted Margaret Holland glance nervously toward doors as though expecting armed men to burst through at any moment? Richard II, once radiant and confident, grew distant and troubled. His visits to Isabella's chambers became rare, his eyes haunted by secrets he dared not speak aloud. The gifts and gentle smiles faded, replaced by long silences, as he stared out over the Thames, searching for ships that might bring either salvation or doom. Meanwhile, the name Henry Bolingbroke rose on every whisper, a forbidden royal secret that hummed through the corridors like a ghost. Henry, Richard's own cousin once exiled, had returned to English soil cloaked in promises to reclaim his inheritance, but clearly aiming for the throne itself. Noble houses divided, alliances splintered, and rumors of rebellion slithered through the court like serpents in velvet. Little Isabella, barely 8 years old, watched this chaos with growing fear, her innocent eyes beginning to recognize that even queens could become pawns or prisoners in the ruthless game of medieval politics. And in the gathering shadows, destiny prepared to drag her into a nightmarish chapter no child should ever have to endure. Under the cloak of darkness, Isabella was roused from her bed, the glow of torches flickering like trembling stars across the stone walls of Westminster. Guards whispered urgent commands, and Margaret Holland appeared at her side, eyes wide with terror, pressing trembling fingers to Isabella's lips, as if silence alone might ward off the royal scandal unfolding beyond the palace gates. What terror grips a child's heart when she realizes she's no longer a princess graced with jewels, but a captive swept up in a deadly game of medieval politics and hidden history. Through London's labyrinthine streets, Isabella traveled in a litter, shrouded by heavy curtains, the sound of hooves echoing off cobblestones, wet with night fog. Outside, the city groaned with an uneasy tension, an empire on the brink of betrayal, rebellion, and dark secrets waiting to burst into daylight. When the litter arrived at the Tower of London, its towering battlements loomed above her like silent judges' cold stone, promising safety or imprisonment or both. Inside the tower, Richard came to see her a king stripped of his former brilliance. His golden hair hung lank, his regal robes, rumpled eyes ringed with sleepless dread. Kneeling before his child queen, he confessed the impossible truth. His throne was slipping from his grasp, and he might no longer protect her from the gathering storm. Little Isabella, though barely 9, listened with solemn understanding, realizing for the first time that even kings could fall, and that her own fate now lay tangled in a web of ambition and vengeance. But in the shifting shadows of power, another figure was already moving closer. Henry Bolingbroke, ready to claim not only the throne but the destiny of a forgotten queen. At dawn, the ironclad gates of the tower creaked open, and a new king strode into Isabella's chamber, Henry Bolingbroke, now Henry IV, a man whose rise to power was a royal scandal that would echo through the pages of hidden history. Gone was the soft-spoken Richard, who had knelt to a child bride in golden halls. In his place stood a warrior king, eyes sharp as drawn blades draped in the crimson livery of Lancaster. How must it feel to be 9 years old and watch one king fall only to stand trembling before the man who took his crown? Henry studied Isabella with the cold calculation of a ruler weighing the value of a living pawn. He addressed her with formal courtesy. "Your Grace," yet even the politeness carried the razor's edge of medieval politics and dark secrets. Isabella, taught from her earliest days to stand regal, no matter the terror churning inside her, dipped into a flawless curtsy. Behind her, poised silence pulsed the unspoken question: would she remain a queen or become a prisoner traded for peace? Henry spoke of Richard's abdication, of shifting loyalties, and of the uncertain future now hanging by the thinnest thread. Yet beneath his measured words flickered hints of danger, for he knew Isabella's very existence could either secure France's goodwill or spark a new conflagration across the Channel. But as Henry withdrew, leaving Isabella cloaked in uncertainty, one truth was becoming terrifyingly clear in this deadly chess game of thrones and forbidden royal secrets. Even a child queen had to play for survival. Within the cold, echoing walls of the Tower of London, Isabella's world shrank to a gilded prison, a place where velvet cushions could not soften the iron bars that marked her as both royalty and hostage. Outside, Henry IV tightened his grip on the throne, while within a royal scandal brewed in silence woven from whispers of hidden history and forbidden royal secrets. How does a child queen survive when her very name might spark war or buy peace at the cost of her freedom? Every moment became a delicate performance. Isabella, though scarcely 9, moved with regal composure, offering polite smiles to the new guards, keeping her voice soft, her gestures controlled. Her French ladies-in-waiting, loyal as shadows, whispered counsel in her ear. "Remember, Your Grace, you are still Queen of England in the eyes of France." But in private, Isabella grappled with a truth more brutal than any lesson from her royal tutors. Here she was less a queen than a political pawn, her worth measured not in titles or crowns, but in treaties and shifting allegiances. Henry's court debated her fate with hushed urgency. Some urged sending her back to France to sever the ties of Richard's reign entirely. Others insisted that as long as Isabella remained in England, she was leverage a living shield against French retaliation. But in the shadows, darker rumors began to seep through the stones of the tower of Richard's uncertain fate, of plots and assassins, and of a kingdom teetering on the edge of chaos. Then, as winter winds clawed at the tower's ancient stones, the whispers solidified into a single devastating truth. Richard II was dead. First, it was murmured by servants in corridors disguised as idle gossip. Then it came in broken fragments from foreign merchants and secret letters smuggled in under wax seals. Had he died of grief, or met a darker fate executed in silence to prevent any spark of rebellion? In an age steeped in royal scandal and hidden history, the line between natural death and political murder blurred like ink bleeding across parchment. Isabella, still a child, yet already wise beyond her years, sat silent when the news reached her officially. Though she had never known Richard as a husband in the truest sense, he had been her protector, her connection to England, and the fragile shield between her and the ruthless currents of medieval politics. Now that shield was gone. What could a 9-year-old queen feel when told that the man who once knelt to her with a gentle vow lay cold in a distant castle, his crown stolen, his life snuffed out in secrecy? Richard's death was more than personal loss. It shattered the last fragile thread linking Isabella to the English throne. In an instant, she transformed from a reigning queen into a bargaining chip to be wielded by kings and diplomats. But even as grief settled over her like a velvet shroud, Henry IV's envoys arrived with new demands that would force Isabella to choose between loyalty, survival, and the echoes of a vanished crown. In the aftermath of Richard's death, Henry IV moved swiftly, determined to sever every tie that bound England to its deposed king and to the child queen who remained a living echo of his reign. Isabella, barely 10 years old, found herself summoned to hear an ultimatum cloaked in regal courtesy, but sharp as a dagger. Henry demanded she publicly acknowledge him as the rightful king of England and renounce any claim to the throne as Richard's widow. The stakes were nothing less than royal scandal and hidden history. Could a child queen, an emblem of medieval politics and forbidden royal secrets, truly understand the weight of what she was being asked to surrender? For Isabella, this demand tore open wounds deeper than any coronation crown could conceal. To accept Henry's terms would mean declaring that her marriage, her queenship, and the fragile hope for peace had all been illusions. Yet to refuse risked remaining a prisoner in a foreign land, stripped of power and utterly alone. Her French advisors debated furiously. Some urged her to accept exile and safety. Others whispered that to yield was to betray Richard's memory and the honor of the French crown. Meanwhile, in France, her father, King Charles VI, emerged briefly from his madness to insist she return home at once, seeing her continued captivity as a spark that might ignite war anew. In the end, Isabella's fate was sealed not by her own voice, but by the geopolitical forces raging around her. And as arrangements were made for her departure, the child queen prepared to leave behind the only kingdom she had ever truly called home. And so, beneath a sky washed pale by the first light of summer, Isabella of Valois departed the kingdom she had once ruled as its child queen, a silent figure cloaked in royal scandal, hidden history, and dreams left unfinished. As her convoy wound its way through the streets of London, crowds gathered, not with cheers, but with solemn curiosity, their eyes following the litter that carried a young girl whose destiny had been forged in medieval politics and forbidden royal secrets. How does one say goodbye to a life built among strangers, yet somehow become the only home they've ever known? From the windows of Westminster, Isabella glimpsed the spires and courtyards where she'd learned to speak English curtsy in the English fashion and taste foreign customs until they felt half her own. She left behind not just stone walls and silken tapestries, but memories of laughter shared with Margaret Holland, lessons in courtly etiquette, and a king who had once knelt to her with gentle vows. But as the Channel winds rose around her ship, Isabella faced a bittersweet truth. Though she was sailing home, France no longer felt like the kingdom of her childhood. Her French now bore the faint cadence of English words, her gowns followed English fashions, and she carried secrets of a foreign court that might shape wars yet to come. Behind her lay a realm that had crowned her queen and then cast her adrift in the storms of royal ambition. Ahead awaited a royal court in Paris, brimming with both family and political intrigue, where Isabella's journey as a princess and perhaps as a bride once more was only just beginning. When Isabella's ship docked at the harbors of France, the winds carried not only salt spray, but whispers of royal scandal and hidden history. The child queen had come home, but she was no longer quite French nor entirely English. How does one return to the kingdom of childhood when every memory has been reshaped by foreign courts and dark secrets? In the gilded halls of the Louvre, Isabella was greeted with fanfare and guarded curiosity. Courtiers bowed low, eyes flickering with a mixture of sympathy and calculation. For though she was still only 11, Isabella had become more than a princess. She was a living vault of intelligence on England's inner workings, a forbidden royal secret wrapped in velvet and pearls. Her mother, Isabeau of Bavaria, embraced her fiercely, but even that maternal warmth carried the chill of political strategy. To Isabeau, her daughter was a crucial chess piece in the game of medieval politics, a weapon that could be wielded in future negotiations or marriages designed to fortify France's position against its rivals. Yet, Isabella, young as she was, could feel the subtle estrangement. She spoke French tinged with an English cadence. She reached for English customs in gestures and conversation. The silk gowns that once marked her as a French princess were now out of fashion, replaced by styles she had brought from across the Channel. No longer merely a child, Isabella sensed she stood poised between two worlds. A queen without a crown, a girl whose innocence had been traded for the fragile promise of peace. And as the French court buzzed with speculation, powerful voices began to plot the next chapter of her life. The question of who would claim the hand and the secrets of France's most enigmatic young princess. In the echoing marble chambers of the Louvre, Isabella's future became the currency of secret conversations, a royal scandal waiting to unfold against the backdrop of hidden history. Powerful nobles leaned close over maps and heraldic scrolls, debating not merely the fate of a girl, but the shifting balance of medieval politics itself. Who would dare claim the hand and the secrets of France's child queen, now returned from England, with knowledge that might sway dynasties? Isabella, still only 12 yet aged far beyond her years, listened in silent dignity as her mother. Queen Isabeau weighed suitors as though they were entries in a ledger. Princes from distant courts sent envoys bearing gifts and promises. Dukes, closer to home, saw in Isabella not merely a bride, but a gateway to alliances' influence and the dark secrets of a kingdom long divided by war. But Isabella herself had changed. She viewed the prospect of marriage through eyes no longer naive. She had seen how royal unions could shift from vows whispered beneath stained glass windows to political traps spun from silk and blood. How could she trust another crown when the last one she wore had crumbled beneath her feet? Yet the French court would not let her slip quietly into obscurity. She was too valuable, too significant in the tangled web of medieval power games. And in the corridors of power, one name began to surface again and again, a name tied to poetry, chivalry, and dangerous political ambition. For waiting in the shadows was Charles of Orléans, a man who would transform Isabella's destiny. Once, among the countless names whispered in candlelit chambers, one began to rise above the rest, a name that shimmered with both promise and peril. Charles of Orléans. To some, he was the embodiment of chivalry, a cultured nobleman whose court was famed for poetry, music, and refinement. To others, he was an ambitious player in the lethal chess game of medieval politics, determined to wield Isabella's lineage as a weapon in France's endless struggles for power. Was he savior or opportunist? For a princess already marked by royal scandal and hidden history, the question held the weight of destiny itself. Charles was no stranger to tragedy or intrigue. Son of Louis of Orléans, who had been cut down in a Paris street by assassins in an act of political vengeance, Charles understood the razor's edge between glory and ruin. Unlike Richard, who had treated Isabella as a child to be gently sheltered, Charles approached her as an equal, someone whose scars, secrets, and intelligence could become assets rather than burdens. When Isabella first met him again, she was struck not just by his cultivated manner, but by the quiet intensity in his gaze. He did not pity her, nor did he look upon her as a pawn to be moved across the board. Instead, he spoke with a candor that both unsettled and intrigued her, telling her, "I am not seeking to marry England's widow, I am seeking to marry you." But in a court where affection and ambition were always entwined, Isabella knew that sincerity could be as dangerous as deception. And so, as negotiations began to weave their intricate web, the child queen braced herself for another union that might finally offer solace or plunge her into fresh turmoil. In the grand halls of the Louvre, negotiations for Isabella's future gathered momentum like a storm rolling in from the Channel. Courtiers with eyes glittering like polished steel whispered of dowries, treaties, and the royal scandal that would surely erupt if France's child queen fell into the wrong hands. For Isabella, every word carried echoes of hidden history, every promise tinged with the bitter knowledge that, in medieval politics, affection and strategy were woven into the same silk thread. Could this new marriage be different or merely another gilded cage? Charles of Orléans proved himself no ordinary suitor. Where others spoke of alliances and thrones, he spoke to Isabella of poetry, music, and the possibility of true companionship. His letters, penned in elegant French verse, arrived daily, each one a bridge between diplomacy and a tenderness Isabella scarcely dared believe was real. But the political stakes were enormous. Charles's family, still reeling from his father's assassination, needed stability and prestige. Isabella's unique status as the widow of an English king and a princess of France could fortify Charles's position and shield him from the ever-looming threat of Burgundian rivals. To the French court, their union became a symbol of resilience, a royal scandal transformed into a narrative of hope. When Isabella finally stood beside Charles at the altar in Notre Dame, she did so not as a pawn, but as a woman determined to write a new chapter in her life. Her sapphire and pearl crown sparkled beneath the cathedral's stained glass glow, a dazzling emblem of survival and rebirth. Yet even as joy blossomed in the cathedral's sacred air, the shadows of old rivalries lingered beyond the church doors, waiting to test whether this marriage would bring lasting peace or unleash new storms upon them both. For the first time in her tumultuous life, Isabella discovered the fragile taste of genuine peace. In the splendid halls of Blois, far from the whispering intrigues of Paris or the dark secrets that had haunted the English court, she and Charles of Orléans began weaving a life built on mutual respect and unexpected tenderness. Could a woman who once wore a crown as a child queen truly find joy again in the quiet hours of domesticity and still navigate the deadly waters of medieval politics? Charles, poet and warrior in equal measure, proved to be both husband and confidant. He encouraged Isabella's intellect, sharing with her his love of verse art and philosophy. Together they transformed their court into a beacon of culture, a refuge where illuminated manuscripts were crafted, music filled the echoing chambers, and discussions ranged from theology to the hidden history of European dynasties. Isabella blossomed in this environment. No longer merely a pawn in royal scandal, she became a patron of scholars and artists, a duchess whose counsel Charles valued deeply in matters of both governance and diplomacy. Yet she never forgot the lessons burned into her by earlier tragedies, that crowns could slip, alliances crumble, and dark secrets lie coiled beneath the velvet surface of courtly life. Even as she bore Charles a daughter, Jeanne Isabella kept a wary eye on the shifting allegiances threatening France's fragile peace. The shadow of the Burgundian rivalry loomed ever closer, whispering that the tranquility she had carved out for herself might prove heartbreakingly brief. And in the hush between music and laughter, Isabella wondered if fate was simply granting her a temporary reprieve, or setting the stage for yet another chapter of sacrifice and sorrow. The peace Isabella had so carefully nurtured shattered like glass beneath a mailed fist when blood spilled onto the cobblestones of Paris. In 1407, her father-in-law, Louis of Orléans, brother to the mad King Charles VI, was cut down in a brutal assassination orchestrated by agents of the Duke of Burgundy. It was a royal scandal of epic proportions, a dagger plunged straight into the heart of France's hidden history. How swiftly could a kingdom pivot from music and poetry to vengeance and war? Isabella was about to find out. Suddenly, the cultured court of Blois transformed into a fortress bracing for civil war. Overnight, Isabella and Charles found themselves leaders of a faction locked in mortal conflict with Burgundy's powerful forces. Once again, Isabella's life became a delicate dance through the treacherous halls of medieval politics, where dark secrets festered and trust was a commodity scarcer than gold. Charles burned with fury over his father's murder, his poetry growing sharper edged with sorrow and righteous rage. Isabella, older now and wiser in the cruel calculus of power, urged caution, even as her own heart seethed. She knew too well how quickly royal scandal could spill innocent blood and bring kingdoms crashing down. But while soldiers gathered and banners unfurled, Isabella was no longer the helpless child queen. She began stepping into roles of negotiation, diplomacy, and even covert intelligence, determined that her family and France might survive the coming tempest. Yet she sensed the tides of war would soon demand a price no crown, no matter how encrusted with gems, could ever repay. As France erupted into civil war, Isabella found herself caught in a vortex of betrayal and bloodshed, where every whispered rumor threatened to ignite fresh violence. What began as a single murder in Paris spiraled into a conflict that split the kingdom like an earthquake. Armagnacs and Burgundians clashed across fields and city streets, drenching the soil in crimson, a royal scandal of staggering proportions that historians would later call one of the darkest chapters in hidden history. How does a woman who once wore a child's crown navigate a world where friends become assassins overnight? No longer content to be a figurehead, Isabella stepped forward as a force in her own right. She managed household resources, organized supply lines for Armagnac forces loyal to her husband, and maintained delicate diplomatic correspondence with powerful nobles who might tip the balance of power. The same grace that once carried her through coronation processions now served her in smoky council chambers, where alliances were forged or shattered over goblets of spiced wine. But the price of power weighed heavily. Messages arrived bearing news of burned villages, massacred townsfolk, and Burgundian reprisals that left entire regions trembling. Even in her own halls, Isabella could feel eyes watching, measuring her words for hints of hidden loyalty or treason. Charles, driven by grief and rage, spent more and more time with his generals, leaving Isabella to hold together a court trembling on the edge of chaos. And in the silent hours before dawn, Isabella wondered how much longer she could bear this life of velvet and blood, knowing that every dawn might bring news of fresh horrors, or worse, a knock at the door signaling that the next victim of medieval politics would be her own family. While armies clashed beyond the walls of Blois and royal scandal consumed the chronicles of hidden history, another silent war raged within Isabella's own body. The once robust princess who had endured courts and crowns from childhood began to succumb to an invisible enemy, a wasting illness that stole her strength day by day. How cruel that a woman who survived kings' coups and forbidden royal secrets should be undone by frailty rather than assassins' blades. Pregnancy after pregnancy had drained Isabella's vitality, and the relentless stress of civil war exacted a price her physicians could neither diagnose nor cure. Fever swept over her in relentless waves. Her breath grew labored. Nights, once filled with music and whispered confidences, became vigils of pain, yet she refused to retreat entirely from duty, determined that her voice would guide the fragile alliances holding the Armagnac cause together. Charles, torn between his duties as military leader and devoted husband, tried to shield her, but even he could not silence the rumors swirling through the court whispers that the Duchess of Orléans was dying, that the faction might fracture without her quiet wisdom. And Isabella herself faced a deeper sorrow, the haunting fear that her children might inherit not merely her titles and influence, but also the same brutal cycle of royal scandal and bloodshed that had scarred her life. Yet even as she lay weakened upon silk pillows, Isabella summoned her resolve. She began drafting letters, codicils, and careful instructions, determined that if death came for her, it would not find her kingdom or her children unprepared. For in a world ruled by medieval politics and dark secrets, a true queen's legacy was written not merely in crowns, but in the wisdom she left behind for those who would survive her. As summer waned and the shadows lengthened over the Loire Valley, Isabella of Valois felt her body surrender to the slow, relentless hand of mortality. Even the towering battlements of Blois, once her refuge from royal scandal and medieval politics, could not shield her from the final chapter of her hidden history. How does a woman who had once been crowned queen as a child face the certainty of death with regret or with quiet triumph over the dark secrets that sought to define her? Despite her failing health, Isabella refused to vanish into silence. Propped up on silk pillows, her breath shallow, yet her gaze steady, she summoned scribes and confidants. She dictated letters to secure alliances for Charles, outlined guardianship for her children, and dispensed instructions for charitable works to protect those who had suffered under the ravages of war. Her chamber, though hushed with the scent of incense and dying roses, hummed with quiet purpose. Charles lingered at her bedside, haunted by the knowledge that the woman who had steadied him through poetry and politics was slipping beyond his grasp. To the very end, Isabella's presence was regal, a queen whose crown had once been woven from innocence and sacrifice, now transformed into a legacy of wisdom and resilience. Yet in her final moments, she turned her thoughts beyond thrones and treaties. She whispered blessings over her children, praying they might be spared the brutal cycle of royal scandal and bloodshed that had shaped her life. And as the bells of Blois tolled a mournful dirge, Isabella of Valois slipped into history, leaving behind not just a tale of crowns and coups, but the indelible mark of a woman who proved that even in the ruthless theater of medieval politics, courage and compassion could shine brighter than any jewel-encrusted diadem. Across the centuries, the name Isabella of Valois echoes like a haunting refrain through the vaults of hidden history, a child queen swept onto the chessboard of royal scandal, medieval politics, and forbidden royal secrets. Yet when we strip away the crowns and the silks, who remains a girl who became a queen before she could hold a quill, a widow before she truly knew love, and a duchess who fought to carve a space for wisdom and compassion in a world addicted to blood and power. How many forgotten queens lie buried beneath the chronicles of kings, their voices lost in the thunder of armies and the crack of royal decrees? Isabella's life was a testament to resilience in an age when even the highest-born women were pawns in games they did not choose. She endured not only the spectacle of 2 royal marriages, but the heartbreak of political betrayal, civil war, and personal loss. Yet she left behind a legacy far greater than a mere footnote in chronicles. She became a symbol, a reminder that even in the brutal theater of medieval politics, a woman's courage could shine brighter than any jewel-encrusted diadem. Her story calls to us now, resonating across time as a viral spark for those who crave not just hidden history, but the human truth behind royal scandals and dark secrets. For in Isabella's life, we find the paradox that defines all great stories, that even in the harshest times, dignity and hope endure. So if you've been moved by Isabella's extraordinary journey, hit that like button, subscribe for more forbidden royal secrets and hidden history, and tell me in the comments, from where in the world are you listening to this tale of forgotten queens and unstoppable courage? Let's keep these stories alive together. Though Isabella's voice fell silent in 1409, her story was far from over, for her true legacy lived on in the children who carried her blood, her wisdom, and the indomitable spark that refused to be extinguished by royal scandal or medieval politics. How often do we forget that behind every crown lies a lineage of hidden history, each generation an echo of those who came before. Her son, Charles of Orléans, grew to be more than a noble heir. He became one of France's most celebrated poets, penning verses as delicate as lace, yet laced with the dark secrets of a childhood shadowed by war. Captured at Agincourt and held prisoner in England for 25 years, Charles transformed captivity into creativity, proving that even chains could not silence the spirit of a man born from a child queen's resilience. His words flowed with melancholy beauty, weaving tales of love and loss that still ripple through literary history. Isabella's daughters, too, stepped into roles shaped by the currents of medieval politics. Their marriages secured alliances, extended influence, and sometimes sparked fresh conflicts. Yet in private letters and courtly chronicles, glimpses remain of women who carried themselves with a quiet pride, traces of a mother who taught them that crowns may glitter, but courage glows from within. Through her children, Isabella's hidden history became interwoven with the broader tapestry of Europe's fate. And as alliances shifted and kingdoms rose and fell, the memory of France's child queen continued to shape destinies long after her own candle had flickered out. But what of the world Isabella left behind? The world, still echoing with royal scandal and forbidden secrets? Let's look deeper into how her absence left France and all of Europe changed forever. With Isabella of Valois gone, the fragile threads holding France together began to fray under the relentless pull of royal scandal, dark secrets, and the unforgiving tide of medieval politics. How swiftly could a kingdom plunge from pageantry to chaos once a single bright star was extinguished? Even in death, Isabella's absence echoed through court chambers and battlefields alike, a haunting reminder that hidden history was never truly buried, only waiting for its hour to erupt again. France found itself mired in civil war deeper than ever as Armagnac and Burgundian factions tore at each other like wolves over a carcass. Old alliances crumbled, new conspiracies bloomed like poison flowers in the shadows. The Orlean family, once bolstered by Isabella's grace and political acumen, stood vulnerable, their power contested at every turn. And as the English loomed across the Channel, eager to exploit France's internal weakness, whispers spread that Isabella's marriage to Richard II, once hailed as the key to peace, had instead left behind a wound that would never fully heal. Beyond the strategies and skirmishes ordinary people suffered, the peasants caught between marching armies, the merchants whose trade routes bled dry, the countless innocents crushed beneath the weight of royal ambitions and forbidden royal secrets. It was a world Isabella would have recognized all too well, a world still trapped in the same brutal cycle that had shaped her own destiny. Yet amid the swirling storm, a single question endured: could France find its way to peace, without the steady hand of the child queen who had once been its bridge to hope? And so, as we draw near the close of Isabella's saga, we must ask ourselves, what does her story teach us today in our own age of shifting powers and hidden truths? Let's explore that final revelation. As Isabella of Valois fades into the mists of hidden history, her story leaves us grappling with an eternal question. What does it mean to live a life shaped by forces beyond our control and still find a way to leave our own mark on the world? Beneath the royal scandal, dark secrets, and the swirling chaos of medieval politics lies a truth that transcends centuries. Resilience is not reserved for kings or queens. It belongs to all of us. Isabella's journey is not simply the tale of a child queen caught in the web of forbidden royal secrets. It's the story of a woman who refused to surrender her spirit, even when tossed between kingdoms like a piece on a chessboard. She showed us that dignity can survive betrayal, that wisdom can bloom from suffering, and that even in the ruthless theater of medieval power, humanity endures. And isn't that why we're drawn, again and again, to these epic royal sagas and hidden truths from the past? Because in the flicker of candlelight on stone walls and the rustle of velvet gowns, we glimpse ourselves, fragile, defiant, hoping that our own stories might one day echo beyond our lifetimes. So as we close the final chapter on Isabella of Valois, remember, every crown carries both brilliance and burden, and every forgotten queen deserves her voice in history. If you've felt a spark from Isabella's saga, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what hidden stories of royalty you'd love to explore next. Together, let's keep unveiling the forbidden royal secrets and hidden history that still shape our world today. As I sit here speaking these words across centuries, I can't help but feel that Isabella of Valois is closer to us than we might imagine. Beyond the royal scandal, the hidden history, and the velvet drapes of medieval politics, she was a human soul grappling with love, fear, duty, and hope. How many of us even today feel like pieces on someone else's chessboard, caught between the weight of expectation and the longing to choose our own path? Isabella's story pulses with life, precisely because it's not just a tale of thrones and treaties, it's a mirror reflecting timeless truths. Whether we're living under the flickering torchlight of medieval castles or the blue glow of our modern screens, we all hunger for connection, justice, and the courage to stand tall in the face of dark secrets and hidden battles. And maybe that's why these epic royal sagas captivate us so deeply. Because they remind us that even in the harshest eras of history, compassion could blaze like a torch through the darkness, that behind every crown lies a human heart, and that sometimes the most forgotten queens of hidden history are the ones who leave the strongest legacy of all. So if Isabella's saga moved you as much as it did me, hit that like button, subscribe for more forbidden royal secrets and untold hidden history, and let's keep discovering together the incredible true stories waiting beneath the surface of the past. Because history isn't dead, it's alive in the echoes of voices like Isabella's, and in curious souls like yours, searching for the truth behind the velvet curtain. So here we stand at the end of Isabella of Valois' remarkable journey, a child queen whose life was forged in the crucible of royal scandal, dark secrets, and the relentless tide of medieval politics. Yet as her story fades into the velvet shadows of hidden history, one truth remains undeniable. The past isn't merely a collection of dusty names and dates. It's a living force pulsing with lessons and warnings for us all. Have you ever wondered how many forgotten queens shaped the course of empires? their voices drowned beneath the roar of kings and conquerors. How many secret decisions whispered in candlelit chambers altered the fate of millions? Isabella's saga reminds us that behind every throne beats a human heart, fierce and fragile all at once, and that even the darkest secrets cannot completely silence the light of resilience and hope. It's why stories like Isabella's resonate so strongly in our age of viral videos, social feeds, and endless scrolls. Because we crave more than entertainment, we hunger for connection, for the forbidden royal secrets and hidden truths that prove humanity has always been a swirling mix of power, passion, and pain. So, if you felt even a spark of wonder in Isabella's tale, don't let it end here. Hit that like button, subscribe for more journeys into epic royal sagas and hidden history, and share in the comments which untold chapters of the past you'd like to explore next. Because in unveiling these stories together, we honor not just forgotten queens, but the timeless human spirit that refuses to be erased. And so, as the final echoes of Isabella of Valois' story fade into the corridors of hidden history, we're left with a question that cuts deeper than any royal scandal or forbidden secret. What will our own legacies be when the pages of the future turn back to glimpse our time? For isn't that the secret hidden inside every tale of medieval politics, dark secrets and forgotten queens, that history is less about kings and crowns than about the courage to endure, to love, and to leave behind something worth remembering? Isabella's journey proves that even those who seem destined to be pawns can become powerful voices. Her life, woven between the velvet drapes of royal courts and the iron bars of political imprisonment, reminds us that true strength is not measured by crowns or castles, but by how fiercely one's spirit refuses to be silenced. In our world of viral hashtags and endless feeds, stories like hers remind us that we are all connected through the ages, searching for meaning, for hidden truths, for the forbidden royal secrets that make our hearts race. And perhaps, like Isabella, we too can shape our destinies even when fate conspires to write us out. So my friends, if you felt even a glimmer of inspiration in Isabella's tale, don't let this be where it ends. Hit that like button, subscribe for more epic royal sagas and untold hidden history, and share in the comments whose story you're burning to uncover next. Because in remembering Isabella and countless forgotten queens like her, we ensure that the past stays alive, vibrant, and forever ready to whisper its secrets to those who dare to listen. As we close the final pages of Isabella of Valois' saga, one truth stands unshaken. History is not merely ink on parchment, it's the lifeblood of human memory pulsing with royal scandal, dark secrets, and the quiet courage of forgotten queens. How many hidden histories still lie waiting in dusty chronicles, yearning for voices bold enough to speak them aloud? Isabella's story reminds us that even amid the thunder of medieval politics and forbidden royal secrets, it is often the softest voices that endure the longest. She began as a child queen, thrust into alliances she could not understand, a pawn in the great game of kings. Yet through every trial, every betrayal, every whispered conspiracy, Isabella emerged not as a victim of her circumstances, but as an emblem of resilience. Her legacy proves that dignity can survive devastation, that wisdom can sprout from sorrow, and that the human spirit, even cloaked in velvet and crown jewels, yearns above all to be free. And that's why we're here, because stories like Isabella's connect us to the hidden truths behind the grand facades of history. They remind us that every epic royal saga holds lessons for our own lives waiting to be discovered, like secrets behind a palace door. So if Isabella's journey stirred something deep within you, let's keep this exploration alive. Smash that like button, subscribe for more hidden history and forbidden royal secrets, and tell me in the comments which forgotten queens or scandalous chapters you'd love to see unveiled next. Together, let's keep breathing life into history's hidden truths, for as long as we remember, the past can never truly die. As we draw this epic royal saga to a close, I find myself reflecting on the fragile yet ferocious flame that burned within Isabella of Valois. In a world ruled by royal scandal, medieval politics, and forbidden royal secrets, she was more than a pawn. She was a spark of hidden history that refused to die, no matter how fiercely the winds of fate tried to extinguish her. How many of us in our own quiet battles carry that same spark, waiting for the moment we too will rise above the shadows that seek to define us? Isabella's life whispers a lesson that echoes far beyond the vaults of medieval castles, that even when the world writes you off as insignificant, a forgotten queen, your story can ripple outward in ways you might never imagine. Her courage, her sorrows, and her stubborn hope stand as testament that history is not merely about kings and conquests, but about the human soul daring to endure. And that, my friends, is why hidden history matters. Because every secret uncovered, every royal scandal illuminated, every dark corner brought to light, reminds us that the past is not dead. It's alive, beating alongside our own hearts, urging us to seek the truth. So if you've felt the weight and wonder of Isabella's tale, don't let the story end here. Tap that like button, subscribe for more epic royal sagas and forbidden royal secrets, and drop a comment sharing which hidden history you'd like to unveil next. Let's keep exploring together, because who knows what forgotten queens still wait in the shadows, ready to reclaim their rightful place in the story of us all. And so, dear friends, as we close the grand tapestry woven from Isabella of Valois' life, a tapestry threaded with royal scandal, hidden history, and the dark secrets of medieval politics, we find ourselves staring into a mirror held up by time. For isn't her story at its core the same as ours? A tale of longing, loss, hope, and the fierce desire to be remembered beyond the fleeting moments of our lives. How many forgotten queens, how many hidden truths lie buried beneath the noise of history, waiting for someone bold enough to lift the veil. Isabella's journey proves that even the smallest voice can echo through centuries, challenging kings and shifting the fate of nations. Her legacy is a beacon, shining from the depths of forbidden royal secrets, reminding us that while crowns may tarnish and empires fall, the human spirit is indomitable. It's why we seek these stories, not just for curiosity, but because they remind us who we are and who we might yet become. So I ask you, as we step away from the flickering torchlight of medieval courts and into our own world of screens and signals, what story will you help uncover next? Hit that like button if you believe hidden history deserves the spotlight. Subscribe for more journeys into epic royal sagas, forgotten queens, and the forbidden secrets that shaped the world. And drop a comment telling me which dark corners of history you'd like to explore next. Because together, we're not just telling stories, we're rescuing voices from the shadows and ensuring that the echoes of history never fade away. As we let the echoes of Isabella of Valois fade into the corridors of hidden history, I can't help but wonder how many of us are quietly carrying our own crowns of invisible battles, fighting wars no one else can see. Royal scandal, medieval politics, dark secrets. These are not just relics of the past. They're reflections of the power struggles and quiet resilience that shape every human story even today. Isabella's tale, threaded through forbidden royal secrets and the heartbreak of a child queen's sacrifice, is more than a royal saga. It's a testament to the human spirit's refusal to be silenced. She reminds us that even when destiny seems dictated by forces beyond our control, there's still room to carve out a legacy that transcends time. Isn't that the ultimate hidden truth of history? That no matter how small or overlooked, every life leaves ripples in the ocean of time. So I invite you, my fellow seekers of history's hidden truths. Let's keep uncovering the untold stories, the forgotten queens, the royal scandals that still shape our world in whispers. Smash that like button if you believe these voices deserve to be heard. Subscribe for more journeys through epic royal sagas and forbidden secrets. And drop a comment below. Tell me what story you're burning to uncover next, because your curiosity might be the spark that brings another hidden history roaring back to life. Together, let's keep shining a torch into the shadows of the past so that no forgotten queen and no human story remains lost in silence. So as we step away from the towering arches of Westminster Abbey and the echoing halls where Isabella of Valois once walked, I leave you with this: history is not just the grand clash of armies or the glitter of crowns. It's the quiet heartbeat of souls like Isabella's, who dared to stand luminous against the shadows of royal scandal, medieval politics, and forbidden royal secrets. How many hidden histories lie waiting in the silence, yearning for someone to listen? Isabella's tale reminds us that life is a tapestry woven from both suffering and triumph. She was a child queen, a widow, a duchess, a woman who refused to let dark secrets define her. Even when imprisoned behind stone walls or trapped in the ruthless game of power, she found ways to leave a mark on the world. And isn't that what we all crave, to be remembered? To know that our own struggles, no matter how hidden, might one day inspire another. This is why we dive into epic royal sagas and uncover forgotten queens. Because each story whispers to us that humanity has always been fragile yet fierce, battered yet unbeaten. So if Isabella's journey sparked your curiosity or touched your heart, help me keep her light burning. Smash that like button, subscribe for more hidden history and forbidden royal secrets, and drop a comment below sharing which forgotten queens or dark chapters you want to explore next. Together, let's keep lifting the curtain on history's hidden truths and ensure that no voice, however small, is ever truly lost to time. As the final candle flickers out on Isabella of Valois' story, I'm reminded that every age has its royal scandals, hidden histories, and forbidden royal secrets. And yet beneath all the velvet cloaks and gilded crowns, history remains deeply, achingly human. How many forgotten queens stood trembling at the crossroads of destiny, yearning not just to survive, but to be seen. Isabella's life was a tapestry of contradictions. A child queen caught in medieval politics, a symbol of peace who became a prisoner of shifting powers. Yet through every betrayal and heartbreak, she carried within her an unbreakable spark. She was more than a pawn on the royal chessboard. She was a woman whose courage whispered across centuries that the smallest voice can still change the course of history. Isn't that a lesson we need now more than ever? That even in the darkest corridors of power, truth and humanity can endure. These are the stories that keep us coming back to hidden history, hungry for the secrets behind the thrones and the echoes of those who dared to defy their fate. Because in every epic royal saga, we find not just kings and queens, but reflections of our own fears, hopes, and dreams. So if Isabella's saga lit even the faintest spark of wonder in you, don't let it fade. Smash that like button, subscribe for more journeys through royal scandals, dark secrets, and history's hidden truths. And share in the comments which forgotten queens or forbidden royal secrets you'd love to see unveiled next. Together, let's keep shining a light into the shadowed corners of time, because history's greatest secrets are waiting for us to listen. So my friends, as we close the final chapter on Isabella of Valois, a child queen whose life was woven with royal scandal, dark secrets, and the ruthless games of medieval politics, I leave you with this thought: history is not a relic trapped in dusty scrolls. It's alive, it's breathing, and it's calling to each of us to listen. How many hidden histories still lie waiting in the silence, longing for a voice to bring them into the light? Isabella's journey proves that even the smallest figure on the chessboard of kings can leave an indelible mark on the tapestry of time. She wasn't merely a pawn shuffled between treaties and thrones. She was a young woman who, despite being surrounded by forbidden royal secrets and endless danger, carved out a legacy that still whispers across centuries. Isn't that the ultimate testament to human resilience, that even in the darkest corridors of power, a single spark of courage can set history ablaze? This is why we return again and again to epic royal sagas, hidden truths, and the forgotten queens who shaped the world in silence. Because in each tale we find echoes of our own struggles and triumphs. So if Isabella's story stirred something deep within your soul, don't let this journey end here. Smash that like button, subscribe for more royal scandals and hidden history, and tell me in the comments which forgotten queens or dark secrets you'd love to explore next. Together, let's keep lifting the veil on forbidden royal secrets, because in the shadows of the past, we discover who we truly are. So as we part ways today, I invite you to carry Isabella of Valois' spirit with you, a child queen, caught in the storm of royal scandal, dark secrets, and medieval politics, who prove that even the most fragile voices can echo across centuries. Isn't that the real magic of hidden history? That it shows us that behind every forbidden royal secret, every forgotten queen, there lies a beating human heart, daring to be remembered. Isabella's life reminds us that no matter how powerless we may feel, we each have the capacity to shape our destiny. She was a pawn who became a symbol, a silent figure who refused to vanish into the shadows. And her legacy whispers that even in the iron grip of power, resilience, and hope, are forces no crown can crush. This is why we keep returning to epic royal sagas and the labyrinth of history's hidden truths, because in them we discover not only kings and queens, but reflections of our own courage, vulnerability, and dreams. So if Isabella's saga moved you as it moved me, don't let this journey stop here. Smash that like button if you believe hidden history deserves a spotlight. Subscribe for more journeys through royal scandals, forgotten queens, and the forbidden royal secrets that still shape our world. And drop a comment below to share which hidden corners of history you'd love to uncover next. Because together we're not just revisiting the past, we're giving voice to those who refuse to be forgotten. And I can't wait to see you in our next story, as we continue lifting the veil on history's most intriguing mysteries. And as we step out of the vaulted shadows of Isabella of Valois' world, I'm left with one question burning in my mind. How many other stories lie locked behind the iron gates of hidden history, waiting for someone, perhaps you, to unlock them? For Isabella's life tangled in royal scandal, forbidden royal secrets, and the treacherous maze of medieval politics proves that even a child queen can become a beacon blazing across centuries. Doesn't that ignite something in your own spirit to seek out the forgotten queens and dark secrets that history tried to bury? Isabella teaches us that power is not always worn as a crown. Sometimes it's the quiet resolve of a girl learning to wield her voice amidst kings and conspiracies. She reminds us that history is not simply battles and treaties, but human souls caught in the clash between fate and freedom. And perhaps that's why these epic royal sagas captivate us, because they show us that even in the cruelest corridors of power, compassion and courage can carve a path toward legacy. So if you've felt even a spark of wonder tracing Isabella's journey, don't let it die out here. Smash that like button if you believe in giving voice to hidden truths. Subscribe for more royal scandals, forgotten queens, and forbidden secrets waiting to be revealed. And drop a comment sharing which veiled chapters of history you're burning to explore next. Because together, we're not just recounting the past, we're resurrecting it one story, one hidden truth at a time. And I can't wait to meet you again on the next journey into history's shadowed halls. And so, my friends, as the echoes of Isabella of Valois fade into the marble corridors of hidden history, let me ask you this. How many other child queens, royal scandals, and forbidden royal secrets are still waiting in the shadows, longing for someone to breathe life back into their tales? Isabella's story, swirling with medieval politics and dark secrets, reminds us that history is not just a chronicle of kings and conquests. It's the fragile, ferocious flame of human beings who dared to exist beyond the limits of their time. Isn't there something profoundly moving in knowing that a girl who once stood trembling in Westminster Abbey became a woman whose name still whispers across centuries? Her legacy isn't merely an echo of royal titles, it's a testament to courage, resilience, and the unstoppable force of a human spirit that refused to be silenced. And that perhaps is why epic royal sagas and hidden history resonate so powerfully with us today. Because in every forgotten queen, we glimpse a piece of ourselves, our fears, our hopes, and our hunger to be remembered. So if Isabella's journey stirred your curiosity or touched your heart, let's keep this fire burning. Smash that like button if you believe hidden truths deserve to shine. Subscribe for more journeys through royal scandal, forgotten queens, and the forbidden secrets lurking in history's darkened vaults. And drop me a comment. Tell me whose story you're yearning to unveil next. Together, we'll keep lifting the velvet curtain of time, ensuring that no voice, however soft, remains lost in the silence of the ages. As we close the grand chronicle of Isabella of Valois, I'm left awed by how the threads of royal scandal, medieval politics, and forbidden royal secrets can weave together a single human life into a tapestry that still glimmers centuries later. Isn't it astonishing that a child queen once dwarfed by towering cathedral walls and the weight of an empire could leave behind a legacy that ripples through history's hidden truths? How many more stories like hers remain locked in the vaults of time, waiting for someone brave enough to turn the key? Isabella reminds us that the past is never truly past. It breathes, whispers, and sometimes roars, calling us to remember that every forgotten queen was a woman of flesh and blood, dreams and fears. Her journey speaks to something deep and universal in all of us, the longing to be seen, to leave our mark, to ensure that our voice will not vanish in the silence of centuries. That's why we keep returning to epic royal sagas and hidden history, because in them we find courage for our own battles and hope that our own stories might echo into the future. So if Isabella's saga touched, you don't let this light fade. Smash that like button if you believe that no story deserves to be forgotten. Subscribe for more tales of royal scandal, dark secrets, and the forbidden royal secrets that shape our world. And share in the comments whose hidden history you're burning to discover next. Together, we'll keep lifting the veil on history's secrets, because every voice, no matter how small, deserves to be heard. And I look forward to seeing you in our next royal journey. As we leave the candlelit shadows of Isabella of Valois' world, I find myself haunted by a single thought: how many royal scandals, forbidden royal secrets, and hidden histories still lie buried beneath the dust of time, waiting for us to dig them free. Isabella's story, shimmering with the drama of medieval politics and the sorrow of a child queen trapped between duty and destiny, isn't merely a chronicle of the past. It's a mirror reflecting the quiet battles we all fight in the shadows. Isn't there something deeply human about her tale? A young girl swept into the storm of epic royal sagas, forced to grow into a woman who learned to wield silence as power. Her voice, though nearly drowned in the roar of kings and courtiers, still echoes today, reminding us that history is made not only by those who wore crowns, but by those who dared to endure. And that's why we return again and again to the dark corridors of hidden history, to feel less alone, to see our own struggles mirrored in the triumphs and tragedies of those long gone. So if Isabella's courage lit a spark within you, let's keep this torch blazing. Smash that like button if you believe no forgotten queen deserves to remain unseen. Subscribe for more journeys through royal scandal, dark secrets, and the forbidden royal secrets shaping our world. And drop a comment below whose hidden story should we unlock next, because together we're rewriting history, one forbidden secret at a time, and I can't wait to share our next royal adventure with you. And so, as the pages close on the extraordinary life of Isabella of Valois, I'm left wondering how many more royal scandals, forbidden royal secrets, and hidden histories lie waiting for us just beyond the veil of time. Isabella, the child queen ensnared in medieval politics and dark secrets, stands as a timeless reminder that history is far more than battles and treaties. It's the echo of human hearts beating fiercely against the odds. Isn't there something profoundly moving in realizing that a young girl who once trembled beneath cathedral arches went on to shape the tides of kingdoms, that in the corridors of royal power, one soft voice could still alter the course of an empire? Her story is proof that forgotten queens were not mere footnotes, but warriors in gowns and jewels battling destiny itself. This is why we're drawn back again and again to epic royal sagas and the shadows of hidden history. Because these tales don't just tell us about the past, they remind us that courage, hope, and resilience are eternal flames burning in every era. So if Isabella's journey touched your heart or sparked your curiosity, let's not let this moment fade. Smash that like button if you believe every hidden history deserves its spotlight. Subscribe for more royal scandals, dark secrets, and the forbidden royal secrets that still shape our world. And drop a comment below to tell me which forgotten queens or shadowy chapters you're yearning to unveil next. Together, we'll keep peeling back the velvet curtain on history's hidden truths, because there's always another story waiting to be told. And I can't wait for you to join me for the next royal chapter. And so, as the final echo of Isabella of Valois' name fades into the hush of hidden history, I'm left asking how many royal scandals, dark secrets, and forbidden royal secrets still lie sleeping, waiting for curious hearts like ours to wake them. Isabella, the child queen who once walked trembling beneath vaulted cathedral ceilings, became a living symbol of how even the smallest spark can ignite epic royal sagas and shape the tides of medieval politics. Doesn't that stir something fierce and timeless within you? Because Isabella's story is not only about a crown, it's about every human being who has ever stood alone against towering walls, desperate to be seen, remembered, and understood. Hers is a legacy that whispers across centuries that courage can bloom even in the darkest corners of power, and that no forgotten queen is ever truly forgotten if someone dares to tell her tale. This is why we keep diving back into hidden history and royal scandal, because in these forbidden royal secrets we discover reflections of ourselves, our battles, our heartbreaks, and our indomitable hope that our own stories might echo beyond our time. So if Isabella's journey moved, you don't let that spark die out. Smash that like button if you believe hidden truths deserve the spotlight. Subscribe for more stories of royal scandal, dark secrets, and the forgotten queens who shaped history's hidden truths. And drop me a comment, tell me whose royal secrets you're burning to uncover next. Together, let's keep lifting the veil on the past, because in shining a light on history's shadows, we discover the brilliance of our own humanity. And I can't wait to share the next royal secret with you. And so as we step back from the candlelit chambers of Isabella of Valois' world, I'm left marveling at how hidden history can echo so vividly into our own lives. How many other royal scandals, forbidden royal secrets, and dark corridors of medieval politics are still waiting for us to push open the door. Isabella's journey from child queen trembling beside a towering king to a woman whose name still shimmers among forgotten queens is proof that even in the harshest courts of power, the human spirit refuses to bow. Isn't that the ultimate secret history reveals, that courage doesn't always roar, but sometimes whispers and still reshapes empires? Her life is a beacon to every one of us who's ever felt small, unseen, or powerless. Because hidden within Isabella's royal scandal and epic royal saga lies the truth that history is not just kings and crowns, it's the fierce pulse of human resilience. She teaches us that even in a world of dark secrets and forbidden royal secrets, one voice can defy silence and demand to be remembered. This is why we're drawn again and again to the mysteries of hidden history, because in those tales we find pieces of ourselves and a promise that our own stories matter. So if Isabella's saga stirred something in you, let's keep that fire burning. Smash that like button for every forgotten queen who deserves her name sung anew. Subscribe for more royal scandals, dark secrets, and forbidden royal secrets lurking in the shadows of history. And drop me a comment whose hidden story should we unlock together next. Because together we're not just retelling history, we're rewriting it one royal secret at a time, and I can't wait to share the next adventure with you. And as the final echoes of Isabella of Valois fade into the corridors of hidden history, I can't help but wonder, how many other royal scandals, forbidden royal secrets, and dark mysteries lie waiting to be unearthed from the shadows of medieval politics? Isabella's story, woven with sorrow and triumph, vulnerability and steel, is a testament that even the softest voices can ripple through centuries. Isn't there something electrifying about knowing that a child queen, once dwarfed by cathedral walls and royal power, could leave behind an epic royal saga that still whispers to us across time? Her life reminds us that history is not simply names etched into stone, but the human pulse beneath every crown, every throne. She stood amid forbidden royal secrets and shifting alliances, proving that courage is often quiet, and that even in a world obsessed with kings and conquest, a young girl's truth can blaze like a torch in the dark. That's why we keep returning to the secrets of hidden history, because within these tales we glimpse ourselves, our own struggles, hopes, and fierce desire to be remembered. So if Isabella's saga lit a fire in your soul, don't let it flicker out here. Smash that like button if you believe no forgotten queen should remain in silence. Subscribe for more royal scandals, dark secrets, and the forbidden royal secrets shaping our hidden history. And drop a comment below. Tell me whose story you're aching to unveil next. Because together we'll keep peeling back the velvet curtain of time, one forbidden royal secret at a time. And I can't wait for you to join me on the next royal journey. And so, as we draw the final curtain on Isabella of Valois' tale, I'm left with one haunting truth echoing in my mind. How many other royal scandals, hidden histories, and forbidden royal secrets are still waiting in the silence of dusty chronicles, yearning to be brought back into the light? Isabella, the child queen who once gazed up in wonder at Gothic arches and the glitter of royal courts, rose beyond the chains of medieval politics to carve her own place in the epic royal sagas of history. Isn't that the greatest secret of all? That even in a world dominated by kings and dark secrets, one girl's story can shine like a star against eternity's vast canvas. Her life proves that history is more than kings and conquests. It's the fierce thrum of human resilience. In Isabella's courage, we see a mirror for all who've ever felt voiceless yet yearned to be remembered. She shows us that even a single voice can challenge the silence of centuries, transforming hidden history into living truth. This is why we're drawn endlessly to forbidden royal secrets and the veiled corridors of forgotten queens. Because in these tales, we find not only the past, but hope for our own futures. So if Isabella's journey sparked something in you, let's carry that flame forward. Smash that like button if you believe no royal scandal should stay buried. Subscribe for more journeys through royal scandals, dark secrets, and the hidden truths shaping our world. And tell me in the comments whose forbidden royal secrets shall we unveil together next. Because together we'll keep lifting the veil on history, one epic royal saga at a time. And I can't wait to reveal the next hidden queen who waits for us in the shadows. As we let the last echoes of Isabella of Valois fade into the gilded shadows of hidden history, I'm struck by one overwhelming truth. The stories of forgotten queens, royal scandals, and forbidden royal secrets are far more than dusty pages. They're the living heartbeat of humanity itself. Isn't it wild to think that a child queen thrust into the storm of medieval politics and dark secrets could leave behind a legacy so powerful that it still demands to be heard across 6 centuries? That's the breathtaking magic of hidden history. It reminds us that behind every crown lies a human soul, burning for freedom, love, and the right to be remembered. Isabella's journey is proof that even a young girl dwarfed by cathedral arches and the crushing weight of royal expectation can become the spark that ignites epic royal sagas. Her life whispers to each of us that our own voices matter, that no matter how small we may feel, we all have the power to shape the future and echo through time. That's why we're drawn back again and again to royal scandals and forbidden royal secrets, because in them we discover not just the past, but our own capacity for courage and resilience. So if Isabella's story stirred your heart, let's keep uncovering these hidden truths together. Smash that like button for every forgotten queen who deserves her place in the spotlight. Subscribe for more journeys through royal scandal dark secrets and the forbidden royal secrets waiting to be unveiled. And drop me a comment whose hidden history should we unlock next. Because together we're not just retelling the past, we're making sure it's never forgotten. And I can't wait for you to join me on our next royal adventure. And so, as the final candle flickers out over the chronicles of Isabella of Valois, I'm left marveling at the astonishing truth that hidden history always reveals that royal scandals, forbidden royal secrets, and dark corridors of medieval politics are never just tales of kings and crowns. They are stories of human hearts fighting to be heard. Isn't it breathtaking to realize that a child queen once dwarfed beneath soaring cathedral arches could cast a shadow so long that it still touches us across centuries? That in her silent courage and whispered secrets, we find a mirror reflecting our own struggles to be seen, remembered, and understood. Isabella's saga proves that history's hidden truths are not lifeless relics, but living embers sparking questions in every curious mind. She stands as a symbol that even among royal scandal and epic royal sagas, the quiet strength of a single soul can ripple through time, reshaping empires and inspiring generations yet unborn. This is why we keep returning to the forbidden royal secrets and forgotten queens, for in them we discover echoes of our own fears, hopes, and fierce determination to write our own chapters in the epic story of humanity. So if Isabella's journey stirred something deep inside you, let's carry that fire forward together. Smash that like button for every hidden history that deserves to shine. Subscribe for more royal scandals, dark secrets, and the forbidden royal secrets that shape the world we know. And drop me a comment whose hidden truth should we unveil next. Because together, we're not just retelling history, we're keeping its heart beating. And I'm already counting the days until our next royal adventure. As the dust of centuries settles over the memory of Isabella of Valois, I'm left with one question burning brighter than any crown jewel. How many more royal scandals, hidden histories, and forbidden royal secrets are out there locked away in the silence of forgotten chronicles waiting for us to listen? Isabella's journey from child queen lost amid towering Gothic arches to a woman whose quiet strength rippled through medieval politics is proof that even in a world ruled by kings and dark secrets, the softest voice can leave the deepest echo. Isn't it astonishing that in the epic royal sagas of history, a single heart can challenge destiny itself? Her life reminds us that history's hidden truths are not merely stories of royal courts and forbidden royal secrets. They're tales of courage, sacrifice, and the unyielding human will to be seen and remembered. In Isabella's story, we find a spark of our own yearning, the hope that our voices too might echo across time. This is why we return over and over to the mysteries of hidden history, because through these tales we glimpse our own power to shape the future and our own secret wish that we too might leave a mark. So if Isabella's tale lit a fire in your soul, let's keep this journey blazing. Smash that like button for every forgotten queen demanding her rightful place in history's spotlight. Subscribe for more royal scandals, dark secrets, and the forbidden royal secrets still shrouded in silence. And drop me a comment below whose hidden truth shall we uncover together next. Because together we're not just telling stories, we're making sure that no royal secret stays buried. And I can't wait for you to join me for the next thrilling chapter. And so, as the stained glass shadows of Isabella of Valois' world fade into the corridors of hidden history, I find myself asking how many more royal scandals, dark secrets, and forbidden royal secrets lie just beyond the turn of another ancient page, waiting for voices like ours to set them free. Isabella's life, woven from silken coronation robes and the iron chains of medieval politics, reminds us that even the smallest spark can ignite epic royal sagas forever etched into the chronicles of human memory. Isn't it breathtaking that a child queen once dwarfed beneath cathedral vaults and political intrigue could still speak across centuries, her whispers echoing with the power to move our modern hearts? She shows us that history's hidden truths are not just about crowns and conquests, but about the quiet courage of individuals who refuse to disappear into silence. In her resilience, we glimpse the same fierce hope that beats within us all, the yearning to be remembered, the faith that our own stories might matter. This is why we return again and again to royal scandals and forgotten queens, because in those forbidden royal secrets we see the reflection of our own battles and dreams. So if Isabella's tale awakened something in you, let's keep this flame alive. Smash that like button for every hidden history yearning for light. Subscribe for more journeys into royal scandal, dark secrets, and the forbidden royal secrets that have shaped our world. And tell me in the comments, whose hidden story should we unveil next? Because together, we're not just preserving history, we're breathing life into it. And I can't wait to step into the next chapter with you. As we close the final chapter of Isabella of Valois' saga, I'm left haunted by one thought. How many other royal scandals, hidden histories, and forbidden royal secrets lie buried under centuries of silence, waiting for voices like yours and mine to resurrect them? Isabella's life, a delicate tapestry woven from royal scandal, childhood innocence, and the ruthless currents of medieval politics, proves that even in a world shrouded in dark secrets, the spirit of one child queen can blaze across time, demanding to be remembered. Isn't it astonishing how a single story from the hidden history of a forgotten queen can still reach across 600 years and touch our modern hearts? In Isabella's journey, we see that history's hidden truths are not just tales of kings and crowns, but living proof that the quiet courage of a single person can reshape the world. She teaches us that even amid royal scandals and forbidden royal secrets, there is always room for hope, for resilience, and for the human soul to triumph over silence. This is why we're drawn again and again to royal scandals and forgotten queens, because in their stories we discover fragments of ourselves and the promise that our own voices might echo into the future. So if Isabella's story ignited a spark within you, let's not let it fade. Smash that like button for every forgotten queen who deserves to stand in the light. Subscribe for more royal scandals, dark secrets, and the forbidden royal secrets lurking in the shadows of hidden history. And drop me a comment, whose story shall we rescue next from the grip of time? Because together we're not just telling history, we're ensuring that its whispers never die. And I can't wait to journey with you into the next royal secret, waiting to be unveiled. So as we let Isabella of Valois slip back into the velvet shadows of hidden history, remember this: every royal scandal, every forbidden royal secret, and every whisper from the past is more than dusty chronicles. It's a reminder that we all crave to be seen, to be heard, and to leave our mark on this world. Isn't that why you're here, seeking the truth beneath crowns and dark secrets, hoping to glimpse not just history, but your own reflection in these epic royal sagas? If Isabella's story stirred something in you, a spark of curiosity or a sense of shared courage, don't let it fade into silence. Hit that like button right now, save this video so you never lose these hidden truths, and smash that subscribe so we can keep unlocking royal scandals and forgotten queens together. And drop me a comment. Whose hidden history do you burn to unveil next? Because together, we're not just retelling the past, we're proving that every forgotten voice deserves to echo through time. Let's keep history alive, one secret at a time.